So I just got finished reading one of Dan Ariely's books, The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. And I thought it was extremely interesting in that it showed that human beings in almost every single situation, unless they are extremely closely watched, will fudge, will lie, will exaggerate for their own benefit. It doesn't matter whether they're an incredibly moral person or proven to be an incredibly moral person. Almost everyone will try and get away with something, right? He talks about so many different examples. You talk about the golfer who has a terrible lie and nobody can see them when they push the ball into a more favorable position, all the way to people who rationalize major changes to things and do some sneaky things under the cover so they can make themselves look better, like what happened with Scott Thompson in the Yahoo CEO, where he actually lied on his resume about some of the stuff that he'd done, that he hadn't finished a degree. And so many people do these things. They embellish, they lie, figuring that they're not going to be found out. But once they're found out, then it could be major repercussions. They think that if they don't get found out, it's going to be okay. They rationalize that if they don't get found out about this thing, then the embellishment, the lie, the untruth, the fudge, it's okay. It's okay. Now, the thought I had was that, yeah, I can totally understand it. I can totally see that people do things like that. Generally, people will fudge a little. They'll exaggerate a little, right? They'll take a little more. They won't take too much. I mean, that's the other thing that was proven by these studies, is that they won't go too far. They only go as far enough as they think they're going to gain an advantage, but they don't go too far because they think if they go too far, they might be caught. So I thought to myself, very compelling case. But what it proves is that humans are generally dishonest. And if that's the case, what happens when you mash up these findings with design thinking? Because if you think about design thinking takes these customers and brings them into the conversation when we talk about building new kinds of products and services, new kinds of innovative products and services. So if you always assume that your customers are going to be dishonest, because it sounds like we've been proven that 9 times out of 10, they're dishonest if they can get away with it. And then if you bring design thinking into the equation, where you're basically supposed to listen to your customers and believe what they're going to say about your product, how do you reconcile those two things? Well, the single case that they talked about where individuals weren't dishonest is when they were being watched like a hawk during the entire period of time when they were doing this thing that they were supposed to be doing. When there's someone there all the time watching them, and it wasn't just somebody on the other side of a camera, it wasn't just telling them, oh, there's cameras on you and they're watching everything that you do. It had to be somebody sitting right there watching them in person, watching them do what they're doing. And that basically leads me to the point that design thinking is great. And it's great to use design thinking to come up with products and services. But the problem is that you really need to make sure that you do these things in person, where you're right in front of the individual. Maybe it'll work over Zoom, I don't know. Where you're right in front of that person and you're asking them point blank to their face, is this what you want? Is this what you don't want? Try to eliminate the natural dishonesty that's in every single solitary human being. Now, I'm sure that there's some people out there who are very ethically forward and will not bend or break the rules. But based on these studies that I've heard that Dan Ariely was talking about, it's very rare that someone is not dishonest about things. So the reality is that when you think about design thinking, you have to understand that there's a percentage of the people that you're going to be talking to who are going to be dishonest about what they're telling you. They're not going to be honest with you when they say, this product is amazing, I love it, I'll spend so much, I would buy this in a heartbeat. Is that true? Or are they just telling you that because they don't want to give you the bad news that this thing sucks and they're never going to use it? That's why it's important it's extremely important to understand that when you're doing design thinking, that it's entirely possible that what these people are telling you isn't 100% honest. So you've got to make sure that you either do it in person or you have a big enough cross-section of individuals where you can really get a good idea of what reality is.